and welcome to our live session. And we have Jenny with us. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this.
Thank you. I'm very excited about having you in our live session. And this is a perfect time of the year to actually talk about encouraging children to read and write, particularly over summer holiday. I find that with a lot of parents, I get that question a lot. The children's been learning the whole year how to read or write, or they do a lot of academic work. And then all of a sudden, there's this big stretch of time. And I think the question that I always get from parents is whether the children should continue reading over summer. Should we just give them a break so they rest? How important is that? What is the balance? So all those questions that I always have. So I thought actually it would be great to have someone who's an expert on that. And you've been an English teacher for 15 years, and now you have your own bookshop, which I'm very excited to visit one day. Actually, my sister lives in Birmingham, so I might be able to visit you not long from now. But anyhow, going back to what we came to talk about today, which is encouraging and supporting children to read and write over summer holiday. So my first question to you is, how important is it? What balance should parents actually have in this approach?
Actually, I think it's really important, and it's really important, I think, that children don't see it as a particularly school or academic activity. Is that, obviously it's great. It is great academically and it does push them. But also one of the key benefits of reading is that kind of well-being effect as well. And just 6 minutes a day of reading can have that positive impact. And so it's one of the easiest, quickest things you can do to kind of improve the mental well-being of your children. And that's what you want in the summer holidays. You want them to be having a break. You want them to be kind of like not completely switching off, I guess, but having that time to rest and recuperate and prepare for the year ahead. So reading is actually a really good activity for that. But then it is also that really good activity for encouraging their academics anyway. So I like to think of all of those academic benefits kind of like as a side effect of enjoying reading and reading for pleasure.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that, particularly that, for children to see it as something that it's not work, it's not academic work. Actually, it opens so many doors once they can read, or particularly for children who, even before they read, that they just enjoy listening to stories and learning language from that. So that's like great. But could you give us some practical tips, something that parents can kind of hold on to over summer holiday, something that you would recommend or you have recommended previously?
Sure, absolutely. So one of my fondest childhood memories actually is the beginning of summer holidays, going to the library and choosing like a huge stack of books for the summer holidays. And it's definitely something I'm planning to do with my own children. And it's a really inexpensive way of making sure that there is plenty to read in the house. And they're excited about something new, aren't they? They like new books is exciting for kids and for grown-ups. Taking books out on day trips is something we love to do as a family, and we do a lot. So if we're going on a trip like to the zoo or to an aquarium or just even to the park, often I take a book with us because I've got 3 children. They're 9, 7 and 4. There's usually a time where I want them to calm down or they need a bit more of quiet time, and it's a really nice way to facilitate that. But also, again, it ingrains that habit of taking a book with you everywhere you go, always finding opportunities to read. Set on a nice day, I like to just set them up with a blanket in the garden, put out a blanket, some books, some cushions, a cold drink, and just make a really inviting outdoor space for reading. And there's lots of reading challenges that you can do. There's loads online. You could create your own. Local libraries tend to have them. One year in the shop, we did a read around the world, and we did books from different continents. So there was a book per week of the summer holidays for children to read, and each one came from a different continent. And I will be sharing those lists at the beginning of the summer holiday on our bookshop.org page again. So if anybody wanted to do that reading challenge, that was a nice kind of like virtual imaginary travel around the world.
Okay, thank you. Great. And in terms of setting that environment at home. So it's really nice to actually, I agree, taking books out of the libraries, because that's very financially efficient, and that also means that children can rotate books. They don't have to be with the same book all the time. But in terms of setting that environment at home, so for example, my daughter, who's 3.5, we have kind of a reading corner, but the books are around our house everywhere. They kind of in lots of different places, so it's not one designated place. But what would you recommend for actually setting that environment around the house so it's book friendly or reading friendly?
Yeah, so we have books and comics and just everywhere in this house, and we tend to, and this has happened quite kind of organically and naturally, but we tend to have different types of texts in different parts of the house. So my kids are subscribed to the Phoenix comic, which are the creators of Bunny versus Monkey. They love those, and we have a stack of those in the kitchen, and when they're like getting a snack or eating their breakfast, they can just sit and read a comic. It's nice, it's quick, it's not difficult, like, not particularly difficult for them to read. Hi, Shahida. So we tend to have those in the kitchen. I've got a book of poetry in the kitchen. In fact, I'm in the kitchen. I can show the poetry now. I can't show the comics because I've put them under the table. But we've got a book of A.L. Milne poetry, and we read one of those at breakfast every morning where we find the time. In the living room, we tend to have a lot of non-fiction books, like the big kind of pretty, like, wow, non-fiction books. So we keep those mostly in the living room. If we're talking about a topic, if it's just a nice kind of something you can dip in and out of. Our storybooks tend to be more upstairs or all over upstairs. One of the biggest things you can do as well is let them see you read. So that's shown to be one of the things that has the biggest impact on whether or not your children will enjoy reading. It's whether or not you enjoy reading. So this is my favorite piece of advice to give to parents, and to myself, because it just means that I can read more. So I just I find time, particularly on a Sunday, because that tends to be my day off, to just sit in my chair in front of the children and just say, no, I'm reading my book now, and just make sure that they can see that that's something I'm choosing to do as well. And also setting time for it, having particular times of the day where you're reading. So obviously bedtime's a really easy one, but like I said, we try and do something quick at breakfast as well, maybe a chapter of a short book or a poem. If there's a topic we're interested in, then obviously it's like, yeah, we'll find a book to talk about it. Obviously I get access to a lot of books, so that's easy for me. But again, I would just say really use your local libraries for that, because my kids often, they get really into a topic, and having books around that is another really great way to kind of get them reading.
Yeah, I actually quite like that idea that, you kind of just go with what they're interested in. But a question about the children who are not so interested in reading for various different reasons. And I know parents very often say, well, should we select particular books? Should we go with a certain author? What should we do to encourage them? And actually, my question to you is, how much of a selection should parents have over the books that children read? Let's say, particularly with those children who do not want to read, should parents then encourage them to read a certain type of books, or doesn't really matter? I think my approach is very much read what you love until you love reading, and then you can choose. But there are lots of different approaches out there, and lots of teachers have different approaches to actually reading. So what would be your take on how much influence should we have on selecting books for our children?
It's a really common question I get in the shop as well, because a lot of parents say, oh, they're choosing books that are too easy for them. I want them, they're a really good reader, but they're still reading comics all the time. And I'd say in that instance, let them read what they want, because what you want is that habit of reading for pleasure. That's where all those benefits lie. And as soon as you start trying to be like, oh no, you should read this, and you try to push it, I think that kind of pleasurable aspect is taken away a bit. If you have a child who really doesn't want to pick up a book, doesn't want to read, when I was teaching, I used to work around their topics that they were interested in. So when I remember I had one particular class of year 7s, and I had one girl in the class who would admit that she liked reading, and she liked reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And so I got them all, just for their homework one week, I got them all to write down something you like to do at home, and it was football or computer games, or there was like some of them were into art, some of them were into dance, and then I booked a library lesson and I gave just a load of worksheets and I took them in small groups and we chose a book that they were interested in that was related to the topic they were interested in, and just took that out the library for the week. And I think it doesn't matter if it's non-fiction, it doesn't matter if it's an article, it doesn't matter if it's a poem or a comic, or plays are really easy to read. Like, just something to kind of break that mental barrier of I don't like reading, reading's not for me, because I think anybody can enjoy reading. Like, I absolutely passionately believe that with my whole heart, that absolutely everybody can enjoy reading. But for some people it really is a question of finding the thing that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we tend to think of reading for pleasure as sitting with a chapter book and it's fiction and it's got long chapters, and that's the longer the chapters get and the more difficult the words get, the better, the more progress you're making. And that's not the same for everyone. So just try a variety of text types and find what they enjoy and what they're comfortable with and go from there.
That's a great advice. Thank you. And I'd like to add to that, actually, what worked for me and for a lot of parents that I work with is reading together. So it's not necessarily that then the children have to go on and read by themselves, but actually those who don't want to, then you can find something that you like and you can share it together. And I often find that, particularly at school, that the children could come and read with me because it was a joint activity. We did it together. It was something that we shared. It didn't matter what book we read. And this is how I particularly helped those children who didn't want to read. So that was a good way as well. So actually, on that note, do you have specific books that you would recommend, something that you really like reading? And obviously you have children at different ages, which is great. So you can give us maybe some particular series or books that maybe you really like reading with your kids, or you see your kids actually adore it.
So the eldest at the moment, so she's 9. What we're really enjoying together at the moment is the Malory Towers books by Enid Blyton, because I loved those when I was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And the series on BBC iPlayer now. So once a week we have mummy daughter night where we get a nice snack and we put the boys to bed and we watch Malory Towers. And now she started reading them, so I'm going to read them as well. I was like, and kind of rediscover those. And she's also really into Jacqueline Wilson at the moment, loves Jacqueline Wilson. I'm trying to get her into the Murder Most Unlikely series because I know she's going to love them, but I get a bit of pushback from my kids. They don't like me to recommend them books, they don't like me to choose books. They absolutely think they know best and they know what so I don't force it too much, but I'd really like her to read those because I think she'll love them. My 7-year-old, he is really loving the Loki, a good God's Guide to Being Bad, or that series. He loves those. Goosebumps are huge with him at the moment. When he was, I think it was when about 5, nearly 6, he got into the Beast Quest books and he absolutely loved them. He must have read 200 Beast Quest books over 2 years. He would read one a day. He was obsessed with those. They both love Bunny vs. Monkey, Cat Kid, Dog Man, Die of a Wimpy Kid, Tom Gates, all of those they really like. And the little one, he is really enjoying Flying Eye. The publisher Flying Eye, they have a lot of really nice kind of comic books. So they have the Brownstone series, which is about heroes fighting mythological monsters, but helping them. There's another series which is similar called Juniper May that he's really into. He loves the Story Orchestra series, which is where there's classical music and there's a story set to it and you can press a button and it plays the classical music. And together reading Fantastic Mr. Fox at the moment. And that's what I'm finding tricky, is finding a family chapter book for 3 of us, because 4 and 9, that's different. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, that's what they're enjoying at the moment.
Oh, thank you for the recommendation. Actually, those books are great because you can get them in the local libraries as well, so you don't have to buy the whole series. You can just go on your weekly outing to a library, particularly over summer. And here in Cambridge, the libraries just offer a lot of summer activities when you can actually go and do swaps with books, or you can actually listen to someone reading the books as well. So yeah, that's a great opportunity. But thank you for recommending those books. And actually that leads us to a question that I think someone popped in the chat box as well, about digital resources. So for example, we can start with audiobooks perhaps, or even go into apps, because there's a lot of apps out there as well that kind of support that reading. So what's your take on digital resources for reading? So kind of digital books in a sense of having, I think it's CBeebies stories that you can read and listen to. There's lots of different apps as well. So what's your take on that?
We had this CBeebies Storytime Island when they were little. Just like that is super convenient when you're out and about and you've got your phone but you haven't got a book necessarily. That's great. And what actually has been good for the older children, particularly when my big boy was really into Beast Quest, oddly enough, was ChatGPT. So I had the app for that, and because those books are so formulaic and there's so many of them, I would just type into ChatGPT, write me a short story in the style of Adam Blade's Beast Quest series about and I would let him choose a monster, and it would generate a short story for him, and that was great. And that's nothing really.
Okay.
Got your phone really easy. We have an app at the moment called Novel Effects, which puts music to your stories. So when you're reading, it like gives sound effects and music, and they think that's really fun. They really find that hilarious. We use audiobooks all the time. So both my big kids have Yotos, and we have Audible, which we use as a family. When we go on holiday, so we tend to like just do caravan holidays in Wales, and I tell them that a TV is an add-on and we didn't book it, and we have a completely like screen-free holiday. So we listen to a lot of audiobooks there. So we listen to all the Harry Potters. Last year, the little one didn't listen to all of them. He just listened to the first couple, but then the big ones, particularly my middle one, he really loved listening to them when we got back, and we got through all of those last year. We've listened to all the Chronicles of Narnia on audiobook. We started Lord of the Rings. We did one book, and then they just said they don't like the Two Towers, and it's really frustrating me. But audiobooks we absolutely love, and I'm one of these people that totally thinks that counts as reading as well, because you get that same exposure to vocabulary and sentence structure that you would get if you were reading the book anyway. It's just presented in format. But generally, and when they were learning to read, we used a website called Phonics Play a lot. And yes. I found out about it in lockdown. So my eldest was in reception, and obviously we all had a free login in lockdown. And I was just using it today with the Littlest, because that's just like nice, easy, straightforwards and fun for the kids. But yeah, other than that, we don't use much, and they don't tend to have so much screen time elsewhere. So we have TV, because I don't mind TV so much. Particularly, I feel if it's got a storyline. They don't have games and things like that really, because I wanted them, particularly with reading, I wanted them to develop that habit before I exposed them to those kinds of activities that I think just are a lot more alluring and are a lot more compelling for children, particularly for their brain, like all that brain chemistry. So I wanted them to develop that habit of reading for pleasure really before we did a lot of the screen time and technological stuff. So those are the ones that we've used, but I know there's a lot more out there. I just am a little bit probably technophobic about them all. So
on that note, what would you say would be the balance? Because I think that is always a question. I get this question a lot. What is the balance? Is there like a time that you would say you would recommend putting audiobooks or digital resources versus actual reading? Does it matter? It doesn't really matter at all, as long as they read. What's your take on that?
I think my main thing always is, are they reading? Like, have they got a current book on the go, and do they want to read? It is really tough, and I think it's changeable as well. And I think we can be guilty as adults of trying to schedule the children in a way that we wouldn't accept for ourselves. So, for example, some weeks I might read 3 books, and then I might pick up a book, and if it's really busy at work or just my head's not in the right place, it might take me a month to finish it. And that, I see the same patterns in my kids as well. Like sometimes they're reading really, oh wow, I can't believe you're reading that. Like the 7-year-old read Lord of the Flies, but then now he's reading Tom Gates, and I think it's the end of term, he's tired, he doesn't want to read anything too challenging, he likes something easy, comforting, amusing. And I think it's the same with how they access like the literature or the stories as well. So if particularly my daughter, she doesn't feel like reading much, but she listens to her Yoto player a lot. Max has lost his, so he doesn't so much, but she might do more audiobooks than reading, and that's fine. Like I trust, it's like regulating your appetite, I suppose. I trust her to know what's best for her, and so long as she is still interested in reading, I'm okay with it.
I actually very much like it, because it's always, when we talk about reading, everyone always says, oh, it's consistency. They should be reading that often every week. They should be doing that many hours. But actually, it's like with everything, it's a balance. It's across a whole month or maybe a whole summer. Have they been doing reading over summer? Or it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be. Ideally, it is, and ideally, that's what they want to do. But it doesn't have to be. So I really like that approach, and I think I'm going to use it from now on. So I haven't so much, but it's very good a tip for parents as well. So actually, so on that note, what would be a tip, kind of number one, or one thing to remember for summer holidays? Something that you would say is important in terms of reading over summer holiday. So we've established it is important. It's good to carry on.
Oh,
every day. It doesn't have to be something very specific, because actually I do very often get questions about reading books, and the parents say, oh, can you send me 10 reading books from school for summer holiday, one for every week? But actually we've already discussed it doesn't matter. But what is kind of like a one advice that you would give to parents if they were to have like a one take from the session?
I would say let them choose what they want to be reading. I think that is the biggest thing for me, is like my goal in my job in the bookshop and through this account is that focus on reading for pleasure, because I think that's where the benefits are. So I taught secondary English, so at that level, it was very evident by the time they're taking their GCSEs and A-levels, it's very evident who is reading for pleasure, who is a confident reader, who has read widely. And I think for younger children, particularly at my age children, and probably like the children you're speaking about here, is we want them to be enjoying it. We want them to be choosing it as a leisure activity. So, thank you. That's one of my ex-students. So I think it's really important that it's, that they're choosing it. So it's really important that they choose their own books. And that's not to say that you can't recommend books. That's one of the key ways that children like to hear about new books, but you can't choose for them. Like me telling my daughter she's going to love Murder, Most Unladylike, and her just being like, no. No, I won't.
And I think I've heard an interview that you were giving a while back, and you said that actually your kids help you to choose books for your bookstore very often, that they tell you what to choose.
I love doing that, particularly the eldest. She's great. If she's in the shop with me and somebody comes in and they're like, oh, what would you recommend for a 9-year-old? I'm like, oh, I've got a 9-year-old here. Or what would you recommend for a 7-year-old? I'm like, Alice, have you got any ideas? And she'll just take them over and just like show them the books on the shelf. She loves doing that.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, Jenny, thank you for joining me today. And if anyone who listens to us is in Birmingham, they should come and visit you in your bookshop. And it's on Bearwood, right?
Yeah,
Bearwood. Yeah, I kind of know my bearings around Birmingham, but so and if not, they should go and follow you. I really enjoy having little snapshots of different research that you post on Instagram. It's very insightful. I love reading that. So hopefully anyone who's my follower can come and follow you as well, because it's just a great resource for parents too. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope our listeners managed to get something out of it. And hopefully we can speak soon again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.